Hi, this is Alanna Carrisforth from Best IELTS Online, and I'd like to thank you for watching this video today. Some of you know me by now. I'm an IELTS tutor and I've been teaching English to overseas students for 17 years, and the majority of that time has been teaching IELTS. Now, this video I'm making today is in response to various requests from visitors to my website, www.bestieltsonline.com, to make a video about Writing Task 2, the essay. This seems to be the part of the writing that students really dread. Now, you don't need me to tell you that in this 10-15 minute video I'm making, there's not really that much I can cover, and that, essay writing is a huge topic. But all I'm going to do today is look at some of the basics that an examiner might be looking for. So the title of this video is The Best Way to Get Band 7 in IELTS Writing Test 2. Why Band 7? Well, the majority of my students seem to need Band 7. Some need Band 6, some even need Band 8, so I pitched it right in the middle. First of all, your IELTS writing and your IELTS speaking are marked by a specially trained IELTS examiner, and they have a special special criteria. They're called band descriptors, and what I'm going to be looking at today is the public version of these band descriptors, IELTS Writing Test 2 band descriptors, the public version. Now, my understanding is that examiners have their own sort of special band descriptors, which are basically very similar to these public ones, and probably have a bit more detail in. But this is what we can see as the public, and I think it's a good starting point for a few pointers. Now, first thing I'm going to say straight away is simply following this video will not get you a band 7. You really need to improve your English, your written English, so lots of practice, read a lot to improve your vocabulary and your grammar, etc. You've really got to improve. IELTS is a test of English. My aim here is to show you exactly what examiners are looking for at Band 7. So you don't make silly mistakes. You can really make your writing quite targeted. And I've just said that right away in response to a few comments on videos I've made before, where people have maybe misunderstood what I'm trying to say, and that I'm saying this is the only way to get a band 7. Of course not. I've been teaching for 17 years. I'm well aware of the amount of preparation that is necessary for any kind of writing test. So the IELTS examiner marks your writing on 4 criteria. They all have equal weighting, these criteria, and the first one I'm going to look at is task response. So I've taken band 7 descriptors off the IELTS band descriptors, the public version, which you can find on bestieltsonline.com, bottom right hand corner in the links section, and I'm just looking straight across the line. What do we need for a 7? Okay, so under task response, to get a band score 7, first of all you must address all parts of the task. So basically answer the question. What's it asking you to do? Make sure you've done everything it's asking you to do. Now, I always advise my students to underline keywords in questions, or circle if you prefer, so that you know exactly what it is you have to answer and what it is you have to do. My next advice is always to write a plan based on what you have to do. So right before you start writing, you know exactly what you're going to write about, Now on bestieltsonline.com, in the writing section, there is a post called Best IELTS Last Minute Writing Tips. And in that post, I've talked about what I think is an ideal time plan when you're writing. So, you've got 40 minutes for test 2. How much time you should spend planning, how much time writing, how much time correcting. And I think it's useful advice, because you really do need to plan and correct as well as writing. Okay, so for task 7, you also need to present a clear position throughout the response. So you need to have a clear argument or a clear position. You can't keep just moving around. So you've really got to think about what you're going to say before and how you're going to justify it and extend it. And finally, presents, extends and supports main ideas, but there may be a tendency to overgeneralize, and or supporting ideas may lack focus. So it's a 7. It's not an 8. It's not a 9. So they do give you a little bit of room to not be perfect. So there may be a tendency to overgeneralize, and supporting ideas may lack focus. Now, obviously, to score an 8, that's not the case. The next criterion I'd like to look at is coherence and cohesion. This is basically how you put it together, how easily somebody can read what you're saying. I always say to my students, what you're really aiming at, both with your teacher and an IELTS examiner, is you want them not to have to make a big effort to read your writing. If you think about it, every time somebody has to go back and read the same sentence again, maybe twice or 3 times, it obviously means you haven't expressed yourself clearly. So you're really aiming at somebody being able to read through your stuff once and get what you're saying. Yeah? Now at Band Score 7, you need to logically organize information and ideas, and there needs to be a clear progression throughout. Next, you need to use a range of cohesive devices appropriately. So a little tip I give my students: only use cohesive devices. So these are words like discourse markers, firstly, secondly, however, although. Make sure you learn them in context. Make sure you know how to use them, and make sure you use them correctly in your writing. Don't just throw a discourse marker into your writing because you think it looks good. I've heard so many students, yeah, but my teacher told me. Sometimes I think students only half listen to their teachers. Teachers give you good discourse markers to use in your writing, but you have to use them appropriately. Now here's a classic case. I have only ever seen about 2% of students use the word moreover correctly. I'm not going to discuss it today. We don't have time in this video. But the amount of times I see it in essays, because I think students have heard from maybe from their teacher or often from certain books that help you prepare for IELTS, that this is a good word. Well, if you don't use it properly, it isn't a good word really. So use cohesive devices you feel comfortable with, discourse markers you feel comfortable with. Okay, cohesive devices is also about how you put the sentence together. Referencing relative clauses when you use who, which, where, pronouns, he, she, it. Basically not always repeating the same word, using a pronoun that refers back to it. Makes your writing more sophisticated. That's the kind of thing the examiner's looking for. And again, we're not looking for perfection, so although there may be some under or overuse, so they've allowed you that window there. presents a clear central topic within each paragraph. So new idea, new paragraph. By the time you get to bend 8, your paragraphing needs to be perfect. Lexical resource or vocabulary. Band 7 says uses a sufficient range of vocabulary to allow some flexibility and precision. Okay, so the examiner's looking for clarity, words that really explain what you're trying to say, because you know these words, you've got a wider range of vocabulary. Now, the vocabulary, I'm going to say the same thing I did about discourse markers. Make sure you know how to use a word in context. Don't just throw a word in because you think, oh, this will impress the examiner. It's a 4-syllable word. It only impresses someone if it's used correctly. In your own mother tongue also. Sometimes people are trying to look, maybe they're trying to look a bit clever, and they use a big word. But then you notice they didn't use it correctly, and it sort of takes away all the beauty of the word they've just used. So be aware of that. Uses less common lexical items with some awareness of style and collocation. So style, is it formal? Is it informal? Is it a word that we use more to talk about poetry or engineering? Collocation, words that go together. Make a plan, for example. That's a very simple one. Have lunch. And these are simple collocations. Have lunch. We don't say do lunch. That's wrong. We say have lunch. Okay, so that's what we call collocations, words that go together. Finally, may produce occasional errors in word choice, spelling, and or word formation. So we are band 7, we're not looking for perfection, we are allowed to make a couple of mistakes. And finally, and the last criterion I'd like to look at is grammatical range and accuracy. And for band 7, the descriptors say uses a variety of complex structures. So subordinate clauses, although he was very rich, he wasn't very kind or very generous, things like that. Not just your simple subject, verb, object kind of sentence. Produces frequent error-free sentences. Now that's important to note. Frequent error-free sentences. So we want, at about 80% of this writing, that's how I understand frequent, to be error-free, and has a good control of grammar and punctuation, but may make a few errors again. So they've given you that little window to make a few errors. Now, 2 things I'm going to say here is on bestieltsonline.com. I did what I think is a good post on articles, because that's one of the things that I find with all my students, whatever nationality, there always seems to be an issue with articles, both in writing and speaking. And I also did a post on punctuation, so you can check those out if you'd like to revise those 2 aspects of grammar and punctuation. Well, thank you very much for listening today. I appreciate your attention. I hope this is useful for you, and I wish you all the very best of luck in your IELTS test. If you'd like to contact me directly, you can do so on the contact page on bestieltsonline.com. Bye.